Hey everyone, I'm Laura Myers for CMS-Connected. A few weeks ago, I spoke with Jon Voigt, CEO and co-founder of Agility CMS, where he went in depth on their unique approach to cloud upgrades and user experience. In a second interview, I get to ask him to elaborate on the interesting approach he has with CMS implementation and digital strategy. Hello, Jon. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, thank you. So let's start off with you telling us about some of the challenges you feel organizations are facing with the management of their digital properties.
Oh yeah, great question. So in today's age, there's so many different systems, so many different options that when you go into an organization, you find many different integration points, you find many different systems that have the analytics, the insights from those systems. And the big challenge is combining all those. Often systems don't work well together, or often you can't join the insights from one to the other. And then you have to make decisions on that. And then you also have the other challenge of pushing that out to so many different digital channels. So it's not just a website, like it was 15 years ago. You have social media, you have mobile devices, you have kiosks and interactive displays. So the challenge is to find a system that can grow with your company. As you add more integration points or more systems and you have more and more analytics and more digital channels, how do you find a system that can support that growth and also support kind of the change in the industry in terms of new things that are coming?
Having a system that can adapt and grow with a business is key, and something I think may not be thought of enough when selecting a best fit system for an organization. They might just think, what do we need now versus what will we need when things completely change in a year, as the digital business world often does. In selecting a CMS or even upgrading, we know two of the biggest concerns are cost and complexity, but is there another factor that you feel is often overshadowed by those two and unfortunately overlooked?
I think in terms of the onboarding of customers, the importance of architecture is very overlooked, especially in the back end of things. And I don't mean the low-level technical architecture. I mean the business processes, the workflows of your staff and people using these platforms. Often people are so stuck and headstrong with the design and the front-end user experience for the customers, which is very, very critical. But if you can't support the platform and use the platform, it's not going to do what you want to in the long run, and that other side, which is the customer-facing side, the experience there is going to fail. So looking at your customers from how you need to provide an experience to them can help you bring better workflows and processes in to your organization. So content architecture, where you're saying, if I'm going and I'm going to add a blog post and it takes me, 5 days to do it properly and put it all across social media and my website and all these areas, that may be a problem if your goal is to get out one a day. So you have to look at these requirements from the back end perspective and then what experience it's going to bring to the front end and make sure that's married together. And it's definitely overlooked these days in terms of what's involved to do that.
I think when implementing a new workflow or task, it's imperative to always consider the whole picture. And that consideration of both sides of that coin, as you emphasize, can be a huge time saver in the long run. Do you have any other strategies for organizations that are moving towards an upgrade or a new system in terms of planning it out?
Yeah, great. So obviously the first thing is to make sure you step back and not only do wireframes and designing and think about it from the front end, but start from the back end too. So think about who are your stakeholders that are going to be bringing this experience to your digital channel. So whether it's your website, your social media, those people should be involved early on. And the questions that should be asked are, what are your top 10 tasks that you have to do? And look into those and drill into those. And then once you start building out your solutions, look at those tasks and see how complex they are and get those people into the system early on so that they're trying it out, testing the experience, and can give feedback so that those things can be optimized and changed before you go live. So don't leave it to the very end of your development cycle or to even after launch, which a lot of companies do. They say, let's just get the front end and then we'll worry about optimizing the back end. Really start from the back end because you create a good experience there. Your employees and partners love using the platform, and you'll just carry forward into the front end in terms of that experience. It kind of translates into what you do. It's funny how it works.
And do you think that approach of creating the back end and then making the front end creates a more fluid and cohesive result?
Definitely, because what happens is you get a disconnect between the two if you don't do them at the same time. So a lot of people will say, we're going to focus on the front end experience, but the front end experience is all powered from the back end. So if you don't think about that back end experience, you're going to have a disconnect, and then you'll try to do things that maybe you didn't even plan to originally, and it just won't work because you didn't configure or set up the back end in a way that's flexible or expandable. And let's be honest, the front end experience for customers is changing all the time. You have personalization, you have new displays and digital channels. These things happen so quickly that if you don't think of it clearly on the back end to architect and kind of plan ahead for changes, you're pretty much pigeonholing yourself into a corner.
That corner could be very costly and time-consuming to get out of as well, which I think is the biggest reason to take a different approach. So I know that the biggest impact of understanding for those watching will take place when they imagine how they will integrate these ideas into their own organization. So what would you say are the tangible benefits someone could experience from the method that you've mentioned?
Right, so there's huge benefits, like just right off the bat, overall, the success of a project. So, I've seen projects happen when you focus on content architecture and back-end architecture from users and without it, and the success rate is phenomenally different. It changes the entire project. And what it actually changes in details is, first off, costs. So if you can optimize how quick it is to do things and to manage things in the back end, you can reduce the amount of time resources take to do jobs. And that doesn't mean cutting away resources always. It can be that good a benefit sometimes in terms of savings, but most of the time what it does is gives you the capabilities to do more. So you have more time to do better experience type things and create a better front-end experience for customers and spend more time optimizing and looking at analytics and those things. So it really reduces the amount of time to do things, which decreases costs, creates a better experience because you can do more, and it gives you that in the future. So if you build it in a way that is a clean architecture, or if you want to add on a new integration, or you want to add on something new, or you just want to content manage in a different way, it's in a clean format where you can add these things on and expand in the future. So expandability becomes a very, very useful benefit from this. And I talked about that customer that we've had for over 10 years. And they have been able to use the same backend because the content architecture was done so well. They just keep on expanding and expanding and expanding and can grow from there versus having to rebuild and restart again.
And they're definitely going to see that value, and they're definitely going to see that ROI as well from their CMS, which is always something people are looking for.
Definitely. It's such a hard thing to quantify, but with CMS, it's an interesting piece of software because it does so many different things and interacts with so many different ways. And what's quick to get something up, right? It's kind of, you kind of judge it yourself. So, but you can see the real benefits when you really focus on the back end as well as the front end, just right off the bat when you launch a site.
I agree. Well, thank you so much for those answers. They were very thoughtful and insightful.
Thank you for the time.
That was Jon Voigt, CEO at Agility, discussing his thoughts on why your CMS should be the central hub of your digital experience for your customers and how you can make that a reality. For all the news on CMS and digital business, visit us daily right here at CMS Connected.